Got Your Eers On is brought to you by Tactical Legion 9. All
right, everybody, hello and welcome to this week's episode of Got Your Eers On. Guido here along with Scoop.
My boy.
And Johnson.
Guido, it was a great weekend to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
It was an awesome weekend to be a Mountaineer, especially if you're the Got Your Eers On crew. Got Your Eers On crew was in Morgantown this weekend handing out koozies. Maybe you were lucky enough to get a koozie in the blue lot. We're handing out koozies again this year, Scoot. Good job.
I was all over it. Made some new friends.
Yeah. And but we got to sit together, watch some basketball games, and we went and saw WVU beat Texas 31-23, Johnson, and it was a good time.
Yeah, and it was something that was kind of unexpected, really. I mean, I didn't expect to jump out onto them with 21 first half points, Guido. Like, I don't know what you were expecting when we sat down, but and I think we talked about it last week, my whole, what do I want to say, worry, trepidation about this game going in was we watched Texas. Now, they're without Bijan Robinson here. I think that obviously played a role, but we watched them score 57 points in a losing effort against Kansas. We know they can score some points. You were talking about the over-under coming in. I was really worried that we were going to be able, is the defense going to be able to slow them down so that the offense can keep pace with points? How's that going to work? But, you have to give credit where credit's due. The offense came out and played a really nice first half, gave us the advantage. And then from there, we just kind of weathered the storm, I felt like.
Yeah, Scooty. And I mean, I thought it was nice to see WVU kind of come out on Texas early and jump on them, from the get-go. I think that the one thing it did show us is that Steve Sarkisian Texas team is in rough shape.
Yeah, they looked like they were definitely missing some pieces. That's not even an average-looking Texas team. I was kind of surprised as to how well we ran the ball. It had been a while since we had run the ball as well. It felt like anyway.
Well, now I would challenge you there, Scoot, just a little bit. I think by the end of the game, we were running the ball really well. I think early, I was actually frustrated that it seemed like we couldn't run the ball. Like, I think that first half.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't
know if we just wore them down through the course of the game, but I thought early I kept bumping Guido. Like, I'm a little frustrated we can't run the ball here.
Yeah, I think that, Letty had a hard time getting started. Again, we keep saying it's a young offensive line, and it is, but that was a bad defensive line, and that offensive line they aren't making the holes or getting Letty, the space that he needs to be able to break free. When they do, and the couple plays they do, he had that 26-yard run that was awesome. Like, there are a couple times that he can break free. When he gets space, he's really good. He's having a hard time getting space.
I think Scoot's right. I mean, overall, you can't complain about Letty going for 158 and a touchdown. You're right, Guido. His long run was 26. But, Scoot, I was just saying, I think early I was like, man, this is really going to be frustrating if we can't run the ball.
Well, and I'll tell you this. We saw in the first half, I believe it was the first half, where Daggy got sacked twice in a row. Did we not see? That was the game. Kind of is a blur to me at parts, but I would argue that the defensive line, some of those guys look pretty formidable. Now maybe they don't have technique and skill, but we talked about during the game, number 98 for Texas's defensive line. I don't know that the three of us trying to block him would be able to stop him. That guy was like a mountain of a man.
Right.
I think that, of course, we got our one token Garrett Green play.
Yeah, it was exciting.
It was exciting.
It was new, right? It was new.
We had him in with Daggy at the same time, which is something we hadn't been seeing, and it wasn't like they trotted one of the quarterbacks out to wide receiver. They actually lined up Garrett in the backfield. And then we promptly did not see that kind of stuff the rest of the game.
Yeah, enough of that crap. It went for 11 yards. The crowd cheered, and then we never saw Garrett Green ever again. So it was fun while it lasted, I think.
I guess, and let's talk about it because it really is the elephant in the room, which was, we didn't see this. This all came, to us as we were driving Route 7 back which we tried not to get car sick on the way back from Morgantown. But as we were driving back, our phones all started to blow up about apparently ESPN sideline reporter reports Jarret Doege returning for next year, guys. So a lot's happened since then. So if you haven't seen it, it's out on Twitter, the video and it was kind of weird. I went back and watched it live or the recording that I had of it. And so they come down and she talks about Jarret Doege and how, he's really trying to improve this season and this and that and the other, and that he hopes to come back. He's planning on coming back next year. So he and Bryce Ford Whedon can continue to grow, and they have a lot to accomplish. And then there was like a stoppage of play. She threw it back to the guys in the booth. There was a stoppage of play, a commercial break. And then we got back from the commercial break. Play started again, and the color commentator, who I can't remember his name, said, hey, what was that you said about Jarret Doege coming back next year? Did he tell you that? And she says, yeah, I spoke with Jarret, and he told me he's coming back next season. So, they seemed surprised. I think probably everybody who was watching the game seemed very surprised. I said to Scooty when the game started, Jarret Doege didn't walk with the seniors.
I was not surprised. Not surprised.
And so then after the game, I think through more of a press release or talking to only one media member, Jarret Doege, because he didn't do the post-game interview, Jarret Doege says, well, I'm still looking at my options. So he kind of decommitted to staying in a way, but it sounds like to me, guys, that this was the seed being planted that 2022 is Jarret Doege again in Mountaineer land.
I'm sure they'll have a quarterback competition that'll last throughout the summer, and then he'll be officially named in August.
Well, listen, you joke about that, but I'm glad you made that comment, because I saw a big conversation on Twitter since the game of people saying stuff like, well, I'm fine with Jarret Doege coming back to be part of a quarterback competition. And I just was like, if you think there was a quarterback competition this past offseason, you feel crazy to me. I would never expect a quarterback competition if he comes back into this sixth year. And I think, Guido, it's funny because to me, this continues to be such a fascinating thing, right? I think any other year, if you didn't know anything about WVU sports, maybe you're a sports writer, someone approaches you and says, hey, write up a synopsis for the coming year. You're probably going to look at stats. You're going to look at Jarret Doege's stats, his tenure, how many games he's played. And you'd probably say, you'd be foolish if you didn't say, they're probably hoping he comes back and they get another year out of this veteran quarterback. But isn't it funny that if you follow the socials, if you follow, I think, just the temperature of the stadium around Jarret Doege, you certainly don't feel that way. Now he goes, against Texas, he goes 27 of 43, 290 and 3 touchdowns, no picks. He's the Big 12 offensive player of the week, Scoot. So, I mean, it's just funny that the conversation around does he come back takes on this weird tone, and it's such a juxtaposition, isn't it, against those stats and stuff.
And here's the thing that's hard about it. Like, if you are not a huge WVU fan, if you don't watch and keep your pulse on sort of the ebbs and flows, if it's social media or if you listen to the radio or whatever it is, like, if you looked at the stats right now, like if you were a college football fan and you were like, oh, well, West Virginia beat Texas, let's look at it. Wow, their quarterback's he's 25th in the NCAA in passing yards right now. He's first in the Big 12 in passing yards, average yards per game. Like, it looks on paper like he's a serviceable good quarterback.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say amazing, but he doesn't every week in and week out, Scooty, you and me, I'll say I did it too, and Johnson, we're all down on this kid, but the stats don't show it, and so then, like, that's what makes it so hard, is because on the other end, at the end of the season, when Jarret Doege, beats Kansas next weekend, plays in a bowl game, wins a bowl game, everybody's going to be like, well, of course he's coming back. He's a winner. He's, and we all see it differently. I think that's what's weird about it.
Well, I think that it's not like, I don't want to rain on the parade because, look, the weekend was fun. Saturday was a great day. Anytime you can beat Texas, you should celebrate it, even if they are having a down year. But I think Jarret Doege is he has spent the season and maybe, the season plus his, maybe his tenure at WVU, he kind of carves up bad defenses, Scoot. And I think we sat there Saturday watching him, having a lot of success against another bad defense. And now I think we talked about it last week with Jake's article about teams that really fail to get after the quarterback, teams that really fail to attack the quarterback. And, we kind of pinpointed like, look, Kansas State, Texas, and Kansas are three of those teams. Like their rankings against the pass, as far as pass defense goes, is terrible. I think they're all 100 plus ranked in passing defense. He, for whatever reason, we had a really bad day against Kansas State. I think they were still able to get after him. Saturday, he was pretty clean. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of quarterback pressures. I think he was upright most of the game. Now you commented, like, I think we had two play, like it came in a bunch at one time where he got some sacks, but for the most part, the offensive line was able to give him time and he had success. And so I think Kansas is going to be another one of those teams. Now, I don't want to count the eggs before they're hatched, but hopefully that's a win. And that's probably why it's going to be a win, because he's going to have time to operate. And I think Guido's going to get the carabiners out in the rope, and he's in his boots, and it's going to cause him to start taking some steps up that climb again. You know what I mean?
Well, we talked about this a little bit on the way home. So is this climb Spruce Knob, or is this climb Kilimanjaro? Because if it's Spruce Knob, then maybe we're very well on that climb. It's probably got an elevation of like 4,000 feet. But Kilimanjaro is like 19,000. So what are we climbing?
Here's the thing, and I'll say it the nicest way I can possibly say it, Johnson, which is, we knew Neil Brown coming in his first season, it was going to be a tough sled. It was going to be a tough hill to climb. Second season, okay, there's COVID, there's other things. You got us to a bowl. Thank you. That's great. Third season, I think it was time to start to see some marked improvement, and we haven't. And I don't think we feel like it's moving in that direction. I think my worry is that now we're okay. And here's the reality of what's most likely going to happen. We play Kansas this week. We're 15.5-point favorites. Kansas already played their Super Bowl and won it, and I don't think that's I think we're going to blow Kansas out this weekend. I really do. There's going to be 7,000 people in Lawrence, in Memorial Stadium in Lawrence, because they get a primetime game, and okay, maybe there'll be 7,050. And so we're going to beat Kansas. We're going to go to a bowl game that's probably going to be mediocre at best, and we'll play a team like Rutgers. We'll play some random ACC team that we'll beat because the ACC is terrible. And so here we are, having a season where it was just mediocre. And now we look at next year, and I think every WVU fan would agree with me, I think Jarrett Doege's hit his ceiling. I don't think there's a new Jarrett Doege in 2022. It's the same Jarrett Doege.
Don't worry, he'll be much improved. He will have... He'll be behind a very improved offensive line.
I think Guido, we saw it early on this season during a game, because I remember Scoot really latched onto it, but it was someone flashed, maybe Fox Sports or somebody flashed a stat of Jarrett Doege's career win-loss record, and it was like 17-15, or I shouldn't say that because I don't remember exactly, but it was somewhere right around 500, and I think. I get tired of hammering on Jarrett Doege. I don't want to do that. I think he's a serviceable quarterback, but I think there's a whole population of fans that came into this season, and they'll come into next season almost demanding to see 8+, 9+ wins. And I think that's unfair to think you're going to get that out of Jarrett Doege. He's already shown you what you can come to expect. And I think if he returns next year, then my expectations are going to be 5 or 6 wins, because I know that's what I normally get out of this quarterback. I think we have skill at the wide receiver core. We were talking about that yesterday. I think we actually are going to return a ton of really good experience at receiver. I know we're losing Leddy, but at the other skill positions, I think Mathis and Johnson are going to be really nice running backs. And I think the offensive line is only going to continue to improve. I know they've had a rocky season, but they're going to continue to improve. The quarterback, I think, is going to be the thing that stays the same. I think it's going to be the known quantity, and I think we know what we're going to get. And I don't think that is something that's going to so if you're in that population of fans, it's like, I want to see improvement. I want to see 8, I want to see 9 wins. I really think you need to settle in and back those expectations up, because you're just not going to get that.
Yeah,
Guido.
and I mean, and again, there's no clear definitive answer yet, but all arrows are pointing to the fact that Jarret Doege will likely return for next season. I think that really kind of puts this quarterback, group in question of, do you lose a Garrett Green? Do you lose a Goose Crowder to the transfer portal over something like this? Johnson, I don't, it's just, it makes me not feel excited already about next season.
Well, and I think the realism of it is, I think if you step back, kind of like we were saying at the top, if you look at stats and things, and if you look at the situation, I think you'd be foolish to say you don't. I know Scoot's going to hammer me for this, but I think you're foolish if you say you don't want Jarret Doege to come back, because you haven't laid the groundwork to do anything else. You haven't laid the groundwork to have any other options. You've decided you dislike Jarret Doege. I mean, you've decided you dislike Garrett Green with a passion, right? And then Goose Crowder to me is like Bigfoot or a unicorn. Like, I've heard they exist, but I've never seen them, right? So how is that person going to be the next quarterback if you've decided you don't like Garrett Green? And what is, I mean, give me another option. What's another option then? Nico coming in and you just throw him to the wolves and ruin his early start? Like that doesn't make sense to me. So I think if you step back and you assess the situation, probably the only thing that makes sense given what they've developed is to have someone like Jarret Doege come back and be your quarterback. What else are you going to do?
I'm not looking forward to it, to be honest, but I told you guys we were riding home, and I said to you guys, name some of the highlights from that game. Now, for me and for you guys, we rattled off the touchdown to Sean Ryan at the back of the end zone, the touchdown to Winston Wright in the corner of the end zone, Sean Mahomes' interception, and then maybe a close 4th or 5th was the 15 servicemen and women who flew a helicopter and flashed horns down. That was kind of an exciting thing. Like
the Texas band being up in the nosebleed seats. That was a highlight for me.
It lacks flash. It lacks energy. It comes across as, okay, let's do our best to try to beat this team. Let's see what we've got. Like, it kind of has this feeling about it. Like, Guido, you're a pro football guy. You remember in the I can't remember exactly, but in the mid 90s, a big part of my friend group were our huge Steelers fans. And they went to a Super Bowl mid-ish 90s, and they had Neil O'Donnell at the quarterback, right? And the only thing I remember people used to say all the time is they just didn't want Neil, like, he doesn't really do anything flashy. We just don't want him to screw up. Like, just go out, don't throw interceptions, take care of the ball. Let the other guys that are really good on the team do their thing, and we'll win. And the defense will play defense, and we'll win. I get that. That's like when you read Twitter, when you look at people talk about this team, it's just like Saturday. Jarret Doege doesn't throw any interceptions. He doesn't fumble the ball. You're not expecting him, like Scoot's saying, I don't remember anything exciting, but he did manage 3 touchdowns. Like, let's not knock him for that. And he didn't throw any interceptions. Right. That's a good day. That's a really good day. And I think that's what you have to expect.
I'm just saying.
Well, but if you're expecting him to go out and make flashy plays and stuff, you're just that's not going to happen. Yeah, that's not him.
No. And here's the thing, John. And unfortunate. What's going to happen? And great, I'm going to be happy. I wanted WVU to win on Saturday. I want them to win this Saturday. I'm going to cheer for them in their bowl game. But he's going to win these last 3 games. He's going to pull it off somehow. And then that's going to be what we are building off of next year. But I just worry that I don't want, and I think this is a problem with the Neil Brown regime or the university's sort of take on football right now. And it's harder in this transfer portal era. Like, I don't want to become a mediocre team, especially with the shifting and craziness that's going on in the Big 12.
Yeah, and by the way, like I would also remind us too to step back, because Guido and I especially get really emotional and we get on a roll. And Scoot, I would just challenge you, flashy or no flashy, to think back at our podcast when we were 2-4 following Baylor, and we were looking at the rest of our schedule. And I remember myself saying, other than Kansas, unfortunately, I'm scared this could be a 3-9 season. And we all sort of commiserated together like, yeah, this could be really, really bad. And we're going into Lawrence, Kansas now, which is if there was ever a winnable game, it's this game, to finish out 6-6. I mean, I know I may not be in love with the football I'm watching on the offensive side of the ball, but if it can go 6-6 and make it to a bowl, I feel like they kind of pulled their fat out of the fire and got their act together, and they at least finished on a positive note, right?
So yes, but let me ask you this question. Before the season started, if you're Neil Brown, I mean, I know it's going to be like a hypothetical question because we're not Neil Brown, but if you were to say, here are my goals for this upcoming season, what do you think were the team goals for the upcoming season?
Team goals, I would say you would probably say things like, well, I guess if you're not Matt Campbell, but I would say like conference champion.
Conference championship, be a ranked team throughout the season.
Right.
Things of that sort.
Like win my rivalry-ish non-con games,
right.
Things like that.
Are we doing those things? Did we do those things, or did we do things to put ourselves in position to do those things throughout the season?
We didn't, and that's a good point. But what I'm saying is, like, when you're 2-4 and Baylor just dominated you, and you came out looking like you'd rather be at the dentist at Texas Tech, and everyone's talking about you going 3-9,
and that's no disrespect to Texas Tech dentists.
And like Scoot, you're ready to just pull the car into a ditch and just end it, end the season. Then what I'm saying is I think there was a point there as you're heading into Fort Worth to play TCU. Look, the team could have said, we're checked out and we're done, and this season's a foregone conclusion and I'm out. And I mean, I'm not happy about how Kansas State went. I'm not happy about getting dominated by Oklahoma State, but I'm just saying on the whole, they kind of kept their head in the game. It looks like they didn't give up on each other, and they finished out. They have the potential. Now, if you go into now look, talk to me next week if we go into Kansas and lay an egg, right? But if you take care of business and you give yourself more, another month worth of practice and being together and building, for a bowl game, even if it's not a great one, I think that's a big deal. I think you didn't let it get away from you, and that's something. That's something at least to be like, hey, good on you guys.
So this is crazy to me, right? But if we're looking at Kansas, if we beat Kansas, our mindset going into the postseason and off season is positive, correct?
I mean, are you asking the three of us? Or are you asking West Virginia fans in general? Like, I think if you ask the three of us, it's probably not. I think if you ask the three of us, I think we expect more from this team. I think if you ask West Virginia fans, it's very much in the moment,
Yeah, I think
that's the difference.
I think it's more like we talked about the Army game last year, right? In the scheme of things, if you lose to Army, is it the end of the world? No, but people then have a really sour taste in their mouth all the way until the next season. Like that cloud hangs over your head all the way until the next season.
Well, this Kansas game it's
yes.
like the pinnacle.
Right.
Like it's I don't know.
I agree with where you're going. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know that Neil Brown understands. I hope he does. But, like, this could be a make it or break it kind of game for him and his trajectory, right?
Yeah, we're framing everything up in you taking care of this, and you go to a bowl and maybe you take care of it in a bowl. Then to me, that's like at least you're
treading water.
Yeah, you're like keeping it a little bit positive for next year.
Yeah, you swung it back the right direction.
Yeah.
If we lose this
and
game,
you don't get any bowl, and
bowl game,
and now
the last
that's
game you played was you
over.
lost to Kansas.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Like,
I agree with you.
They'll run Neil and Jarrett Doege out of town. They're not going to want both of those guys back. Who's going to want both of those guys back?
Yeah, and I think another interesting thing that kind of plays a little bit into, what is happening in the program. I mean, we've already talked about the decommits. West Virginia saw 2 last week, pretty big players, high school players coming in that decommitted. So that was kind of a challenging thing. On top of that, interesting thing, and we hadn't talked about this yet, guys. Seniors Day on Saturday, you had all these guys walk: Tyler Sumner, Alonzo Adai, Chandler Tomato, Staley, Sean Mahone, great, Darius, Dante Stills, Letty. A couple interesting names that walked that I didn't jump out to me at first. How about Jackie Matthews walking? He's a redshirt junior, and he walked on Senior Day. I thought that was interesting. Also, and kind of bigger to me, Sean Ryan walked as a senior, and he's a true junior. And I get, like, sometimes you've finished your college degree and maybe you've decided, hey, pro career's not for me. I'm going to go sell insurance or, do IT or whatever you did. Yeah, you have your degree in. Just thought it was interesting. You don't see a lot of times. Redshirt junior, maybe not so surprising. True junior, kind of surprising. Especially a true junior that was getting some playing time.
And here's the thing. The three of us have all been to college. We've all graduated from college. I would argue that college were some of the best years of our lives. And as I get older, obviously, it's a little bit farther removed. But if I'm, 22, 23, 21, I think I'd like to stay in college. Like, I would like to stay in college.
You have the advantage of the 20 past years to go, oh, you know what? Those are some really good times. I should go back to those. Probably at the time you were like ready to get out.
5.5 years for me. I actually graduated in 4 years and went back.
Scooty's like, college was the best 15 years of my life. And Scooty's like Bluto from
I went back
Animal
and got
House.
another degree. I was like, hey, listen, if I can come back and get another degree, I'm coming back. College was great.
Well, that is interesting. And I don't know, Guido, do you frame that up as two guys that are like, I'm finished. I've had my fill of this. Yeah, like are you framing that up like I've had my fill of this situation? I'm moving on.
I think that yes, and I think it probably made it awkward for Neil Brown. I mean, you should read, if you get a chance, read Chris Anderson's article at earsports.com about it, because he talks about Neil Brown talking about it being a little awkward, and I just think that it just makes me worry that we're starting to see all this flux in the climb, and we're seeing it at the player level. And it's impossible when you have 80 some odd guys in the locker room, more than that, there's going to be guys that aren't happy. Like that's inevitable.
Also interesting is the Troy job is open.
Why is that interesting?
Do we see, because there's a lot of Troy guys on our staff.
One of them get like Jordan Leslie, or one of them go back and get a job there. Possibly.
And then, what does that do to recruiting?
And so for me, and here's the thing, Scooty, like all the on-staff guys, and we'll talk about this in a couple of weeks when it really starts to come to fruition. Like those guys all have 1-year contracts. Like none of those guys have multi-year contracts. So like you're prepared. You need to be prepared as a head coach that you're going to lose or gain those guys every year. So,
no, but Scoot, I want to go back before we leave that, Guido. I want to go back to Scoot's point about do you win or lose against Kansas? How do you set up the season for the offseason? And I just want to complete that. The thought I was having there, Scoot, just so we're clear, is I feel like if you go take care of Kansas, and then if you take care of business in a bowl game, it's not that because I don't want you to get the wrong impression from me. I'm not saying that suddenly everything's like bright skies and rainbows. What I'm saying is that has now afforded, I feel like that then affords Neil Brown the chance to go, okay, take a breath. Let's get this stuff.
Do you have to win the bowl game
for next year? I kind of think you do. I'll be honest with you. I kind of think you do. But let me just say, and then tell me what you think. But I think what I'm saying is if you lose to Kansas, then you've swung it way back in the direction it was prior to Texas. You know what I mean? Like it was like, geez,
right.
We just got, I think you swing it back that way, and then you really don't give now you're battling that all off season. I think if you take care of business against Kansas, and I think personally, because you're not going to play a good team in the bowl, right? So I'm saying then I think you have to win the bowl game, because you're probably going to play a mediocre team, right? So, the thing we were talking about was the report that we might play Rutgers, right? I don't want to, how am I going to feel if I lose to Rutgers? We've owned them forever, right? So all I'm saying is if you win Kansas, you win the bowl game. I'm not saying it's now great. I'm saying it's now afforded Neil Brown the chance to take a breath and get his crap together with this team, right? And I think, so my question back to you saying that is, if we go into next August, and Jarrett Doege's your quarterback. Have you grasped the opportunity to get things in gear and hit the next season with the oomph that you want to have a really nice season? Like, what do you make of that then?
Well, that's what, like, so I think perpetually you just push this program down the road another year or two. Like, going into next season, can I confidently say, hey, our goal is to win the conference? Do I think we're going to win the conference? I don't. Not if we're constructed the exact same way with the same play calling and the same cast of characters. Something has got to change. Otherwise, you're going to produce the exact same thing. Do I feel like we're going to be ranked? No, because we're going to still have none of those things get much better. There has to be something, and it can't just be traditional player development that happens just because they're another year older. Like, there's got to be some kind of scheme change, some kind of philosophy change, or like a Clint Trickett situation, or a Will Grier situation, or like you've introduced someone new into them. Is that what you're saying? Yes, or it's a personnel change. It either has to be personnel, philosophy, or scheme, or play calling. It's got to be something of those to make a change, right? Otherwise, if you're just basically saying, well, you're a year older, you should be that much better, that's not enough. I mean, what's that going to get you? Another win? Is that maybe one? Like, is overall experience, a year's experience, worth at least one win? It's not going to be worth 3 or 4 wins.
No, and that's and here's the thing, guys, and like even with all of that aside, you look at our schedule next year, and it ain't pretty. I mean, our non-conference games. I mean, Pitt. I hate to say this, I'm very excited about the Backyard Brawl returning, playing at Heinz Field on September 3rd. Pitt's a good team. Pitt could probably beat us right now. Pitt would beat us right now. And, Towson State, whatever. And then the Hokies are going to be rebuilding next year. I just don't know, guys. Like, this team next year, if it doesn't do things to change, it's not going to be any different. We're definitely not going to be any different.
I would argue that the next 5 games in our season, in our schedule, that would be Kansas. If we win or lose, if we lose, then you're down to 4 games I'm worried about. The next 5, let's say we win and we go to a bowl game. Those next 5 games may be the most important games of Neil Brown's career.
Yeah, it's almost like a season in a season, isn't it? It's like this is going to be an interesting chapter of games that kind of makes or breaks the outlook, I think. You're right.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Like, he's got to win, and I think of the 5 games, I think he's got to win 3. I think he's got to go 3-5. I think he can get by.
I mean, you can't beat Kansas and Towson and say that you're making progress.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Like, you can't.
Right.
You've got to win the bowl game. You've got to win Pitt or Virginia Tech.
You got to beat
Pitt and Virginia
Pitt.
Tech.
Yeah, that's bad news.
That's not great.
Especially with like Kenny. I don't remember off the top of my head. I shouldn't say this about it, but I thought Kenny Pickett was probably on his way out. Right?
I think he is.
And then you have Virginia Tech. They're starting brand new with a new coach. So that would be a bad look to lose those 2 games. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But I think that's a good point, Scoot. That this upcoming 4 or 5 games, that's going to be a super important stretch of games.
It'll be interesting. WVU travels to Lawrence this weekend to play on a primetime game, guys. 7 p.m. Fox Sports 1 against Kansas. Rock Chalk, them Jayhawks. West Virginia favored by 15.5 right now. Kind of surprised at the line. I thought it was going to be big. 15.5 seems really big, but
I think that changes once Kansas announces their uniforms. If they go chrome,
maybe
it stays
chrome,
high.
if
If it lowers, if they going non-chrome face masks, it will drop down a little bit.
The over-under is 56 on the game as well, so points will be scored. Happy for WVU win, guys. We had a great time. I have to admit something very upset me.
Okay.
And I'm going to blame some other people that were involved, but totally forgot to have Scooty make his sign. So in good news, this might be the one reason I want Jared Dagey to come back next season, just so I can. Scooty still has to do this. This is still happening. He's just gonna have to do it next season.
The best will be when we forget again, and Nico is like a junior, and I show up with Dagey as my boy for a sign.
Totally forgot to have you hold the Dagey as my boy sign. But we had a great time. We had some great seats. Mountaineer Field was packed. 45,000 people, more than we all expected to be there.
Well, and I think, Guido, that's something good to mention, too, because I thought there would be, we were all afraid, Scoot, there would be not even 35,000 people there. So I thought it was a great crowd, all things considered.
But WVU wins. They beat Texas 31-23. They go on Saturday to play Kansas. Guys, some other stuff we should probably talk about. One is, and I just have to talk about it. I know it's high school sports. We don't talk a lot about high school sports, but my alma mater, Fairmont Senior High School, doing really well, going to the semifinals, and number one listener, number one fan of the show, Jam Kreitz, Mr. Kreitz's polka dots are up against us this week. Mr. Kreitz, I apologize, but you will be going down. The Bears.
I think maybe
Polar Bears.
Maybe I can I be your bookie here and maybe negotiate a bet?
I mean, I feel like there needs to be a bet between me.
Like Country Club pepperoni roll versus whatever Polka's best pepperoni roll.
Maybe that's what we need to do. We got to figure out something. But so congrats to Fairmont Senior and the polka dots for making that. And we like to mention the polka dots. They're like one of our favorite high school teams also on this show. So we mention them a lot. All right, so let's take a break, guys, real quick. We'll be back. We're going to talk a little basketball in the second segment, a little bit about Huggins playing in the Shriners Charleston Classic. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Got Your Eers On.
Vortec Knives is a West Virginia owned and operated company specializing in high-quality steel, fast-opening, everyday carrying knives. If you go to VortecKnives.com today and use the code GYEO, you get a 25% discount on your entire order. That's Vortec, VORTEK Knives.com, a West Virginia owned and operated company specializing in fast-opening, high-quality, everyday carry knives. Vortec Knives.
Everybody, welcome back to Got Your Eers On. Guido along with Scoot and Johnson. And listen, don't forget, find us online. You can look for us on the social medias at Got Your Eers On, Twitter and on Instagram. You can also find us on Facebook. And check out our website, gotyourearson.com, right, Johnson? It's sort of like the hub of everything about
Yeah, that's
us.
right. We always post the latest show with all the links to our show notes. You can check those out further. You can click the tune-in link in the sidebar and get to the latest show right there. You can also click through to the merch store and check out some GYEO merch. So check it out, gotyourearson.com.
Yeah, definitely check it out. All right, guys. So WVU travels to Charleston, South Carolina to play in the Shriners Children Charleston Classic. Finishing third. We kind of wanted to win. We thought we had a good shot at a win. I think, looking at the whole weekend, guys, there were lots of ups and downs. And if you talk to Huggins, he kind of said that in his post game after the Clemson game. He was like, it was up, it was down. He goes, he was happy with the way the team looked in Clemson. I think the thing that bothers me the most is losing to Shaka Smart, Scooty.
Yeah, I didn't really think much about that team, and apparently neither did Hugs, because he didn't think much about Marquette either. I don't know that and maybe he's just maybe this is, for show or something. Maybe he and Shaka are good buddies outside of it feels like they're not, but maybe they are. Shaka is very demonstrative on the sideline. At times he coaches kind of with the emotion of a player. And that's probably why kids like playing for him, but it's annoying. It's again another Marquette coach that I can't stand, a la Buzz Williams.
Right.
Yeah, another coach that I can't stand. What is noticeable for me, because I don't know that I really want to go back and break down each individual game. I think we need to take it as a lump sum.
Yeah.
But Scoot, this was a game. So I agree with you, but this was a game in particular where we just had a second half collapse. Like if you think of that Marquette game, we had a sizable lead, and then like almost within the first TV timeout of the second half, it was all gone. And Hugs was like, he was like anti timeouts during that whole run. If you recall,
that's the problem.
Yeah, and I think that's what I had trouble with is you saw Kerrigan had that awesome block and kind of
that was the turning point of the game.
It was. I mean, it felt like we had so much momentum at that point. He did that awesome block. Everybody's pumped. He does a little show off, I think, and then shortly thereafter there was a game stoppage and he got pulled from the game. And at that point, I think that really just turned the game right there. And I don't know if,
I agree.
Marquette started to play out of their minds. They started to play. They went on a run. It was like an 8-0 run, and we're sitting there watching the game. It's like, call a timeout, Huggins. Like, we looked terrible. We were making bad shots. I think there were like 2 turnovers in that series.
Yeah, and the body language was bad too. Guys were kind of hanging their heads, walking around. I mean, you could just tell it was sort of falling apart. But I mean, that was really uncharacteristic of what you had seen.
Right.
Really in that whole tournament up to that point.
Yeah, and I think, is that Huggins, though, trying to teach them a lesson, for lack of a better term, Scoot?
Yeah, I think that's like some tough love, some hey, listen, there's going to be times where you guys are going to have to figure it out. That's kind of what the message he's sending is like, listen, I can't do everything for you if you're not going to listen to if you're not going to listen to what I told you in the last timeout, then why should I call another timeout? That's the kind of stuff that probably he's thinking is like, you didn't listen to what I told you to do last time, so why would I bother calling a timeout now? Figure it out. You guys know better than me. Kind of like like all coaches do it. Like I've coached that way. I've had coaches that coach that way. I know other coaches who do the same. Like at some point, like if you've just told your team what you want them to do and they decide they're still going to do the opposite, then all right, hey, you guys know best. Go ahead. Let's see what you do. And that's what happened.
And I think that, and then he came out and did the post-game press conference after it with post-game interview with Tony, and he was, down on the team. He was like, they didn't play. They're not trying hard. They're not being physical.
Well, and I think something that caught my attention, Guido, he said, we play Clemson next. They're a lot better than Marquette. He just was like in a sour. He was just like sour about the whole thing.
And you know him, and this is the thing you got to love about him, is he is like a very much emotional, like I wear it on my shoulders kind of guy when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, they're terrible, I'm unhappy, and the next team's better, so don't expect us to win. Like, that's kind of what he was saying, and I love that about him. I will say that Clemson game, and there were ups and downs in that Clemson game. I mean, I think Clemson, at one point had a 10 or 12-point lead in the second half. Team looked great. I mean, it was like a complete 360 in the sense of like, you saw the team turn around, you saw the team play tough in the second half of the Clemson game. And, aside from, and we'll talk about here in a second, some issues that Clemson had at the end of the game. I mean, we kind of got control of that game, and it felt like the momentum, at least towards the end of the game, felt like we were going to win it.
Well, Scoot, I thought it was interesting that, and I have a feeling you probably paid attention to that the most too. When you're only down 1 at half against Clemson, and Sean McNeil hasn't scored a point.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty telling. He hadn't really shot the ball all that much, to be honest with you, up until that point. So I felt good thinking to myself, as long as he's not hurt or something's wrong with him. Then he's gonna score. Like he's too good of a shooter to not score.
Well,
so
and
I had
think
a feeling
he got
like that
all
was
15 of his points in the final 10 minutes, like in a bunch. All of a sudden he just like flipped it on.
Yeah, he's gonna score. My big concerns with this team right now are our lack of interior presence. If Diamond Kerrigan's not in, he's the only one that's truly a rim protector. Yes, Gabe will get some charges and he'll get some rebounds, but he's not like the guy that is going to swat shots, and he's got a presence, but it's not crazy. He's not tall. He's not huge. Isaiah Cottrell is not a defender. He is, at this point in his career, he is not a great defender. He seems a bit slow, and he gets pulled out along the perimeter and gets beat. And that's an issue.
And I think, Scooty, what's interesting to me is that he was a big recruit coming in. I think there was a lot of hope for him. And I'm not saying that hope's gone, but I think that he's starting to, and Huggins plays it this way. Like, guys who play and guys who play hard and guys who do what they're supposed to do, they get on the court. And I think you're starting to see for Isaiah that time start to diminish a little bit, and you're starting to see other guys take on those roles that we all thought he was going to have control of this season.
Well, and I think just to add on to what Scoot's saying too, because that's a concern for me, because I was worried coming into the tournament that the rebounding woes were going to continue. You know, I think someone like Isaiah, who likes to be more on the perimeter, kind of makes me worry about that a little bit more. But we ended up out rebounding Elon. Marquette out rebounded us, but it was close. Wasn't a huge margin, wasn't a huge deficit. And then we come out against Clemson and we out rebound them. So to me, I'm trying to spin that in my mind as a bit of a positive, because I'd like to see that addressed, and it felt like it was better in the tournament.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is some of these guards are having to rebound the ball more, and maybe that's part of the issue. Is like, you know, if you're Malik Curry, who that wasn't his primary responsibility at Old Dominion.
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, listen, Malik, I don't know what you did last year, but here we need you to go get the ball.
It's like all hands on deck now.
Yeah, like, you know, you're telling some of these other guys, Paulie Polacap and Kobe Johnson. I know in high school you probably didn't rebound the ball all that much. Here you got to rebound the ball, because we don't have the size. We don't have those, you know, we don't have Oscar and Derek Culver who's going to eat up 20 rebounds apiece.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
I also think what's interesting is, you know, Gabe's play has been great this season, and Gabe's been doing the things Gabe does. I don't know if it's confidence. Maybe Gabe is feeling very confident about his basketball play, or what it is. Shot a three against Clemson, like pulled up, shot a three.
I would argue that's ill-advised.
A couple dribble drive attempts by Gabe.
Also ill-advised. Like, listen, I love Gabe. Gabe's a great guy, great teammate. Really a dream teammate to have, because he's gonna help you look a lot better, because he's gonna pick up where you made a mistake. However, like, there are times where Gabe has the ball on the offensive end, and I know in high school he had to have been a scorer at some point, but it's as if somebody just gave him a hot loaf of bread out of the oven, and he does not know what to do with this hot loaf of bread. He doesn't have oven mitts on, and he's kind of like, he does a couple little shimmies with the hot loaf in his hand, and then he just kind of like releases it and tosses it up, and
it's awkward,
where it goes, nobody knows.
Yeah, it's awkward.
But here's the fun thing about him, though, guys, is like, you know, charges are fun. I cheer so hard when he takes a charge. It's so awesome to watch him play defense that I'm willing to like accept a little bit of the wackiness on offense, I guess.
Yeah, and someone on Twitter pointed out, I'll have to go back and dig it up and maybe put it in the show notes, but someone pointed out a couple replays where, you know, Gabe's not a shot blocker, like a Diamond Kerrigan per se, but he affected dribble drives in the way a shot blocker might affect a dribble drive. You know, like a guy changing direction as Gabe is sliding over, because they're so, 5 charges in, you're worried about this guy getting the next charge on you. So I think that's really interesting, and I think it's an interesting part of Gabe's game that he has that effect on people.
What we saw more this weekend also is a little bit more of a press Virginia. I think we're starting to see shades of that. And I'm excited to see that continue to grow, because I think that could be our thing. I don't know that we have the depth as far as like wholesale 5 guys in, 5 guys out kind of stuff that we used to do in the past. But we're starting to see guys run around, and I think even John Flowers tweeted out that he likes seeing the guys look like they're on fire playing defense, like they are actually like on fire.
But talking about the Clemson game specifically, guys, I mean, it was, well, first of all, and sticking with Gabe Osaboyan, and we jumped off there for a second, but sticking with Gabe Osaboyan, could they have called him the Mountaineer Man more times during a game? That was like the most ridiculous thing ever.
Well, and where did that come from, Guido?
It's not a thing. It's definitely not a thing. They're trying. ESPN, somebody at ESPN was like, we need to make this a thing. And so then they put up like a list of previous Mountaineer men, and they had,
it was
like,
probably your guy, Smalligan. Remember, didn't you draft Smalligan? You drafted Smalligan.
I think Flowers was on there. Nate Adrian was on the list. Like, Nate Adrian was a Mountaineer man? Like, I don't understand what a Mountaineer man is.
Well, it felt very much, Guido, like the ESPN folks saying, well, we always have a thing. We need a thing. Like, is Jarrett Dagey playing? His brother didn't. And they're like, no, you can't do that. He's not on the court. And they're like, well, Garrett Green stole home one time. And they're like, no, he's not on the court. You got to find it. And they're like, well, it's Mountaineer Man. Like, Gay Boss Boy takes charges, and people in coal mines like that. He's Mountaineer Man, or I don't know. Like, it's weird.
He's Mountaineer Man. Like, I don't know. It was hilarious. But anyways, the Clemson game, if you didn't get a chance to watch it, one of the more interesting endings to a game. 17 seconds left. Clemson hits 2 free throws. They're down by 3, and WVU's getting ready to take the ball out on the side. JB calls a timeout. Timeout happens. ESPN stays with it. We watch it all, the normal timeout sort of stuff. Come back from the timeout, and you only get the half court, that we're inbounding the ball on. And there's JB's taking the ball out. There are 3 other guys. You've got Taz, you've got McNeil, and I believe the other person was Malik Curry. I think it was. And then Gabe Osaboyan is way down the other end of the court. And so I'm watching it, and I'm seeing, okay, you've got maybe they've left Gabe open down there. Like, maybe Gabe's playing up just off camera or whatever, because everybody else is guarded. Taz has got a double team on him, and everybody's guarded. There's the guy on the baseline. They inbound the ball to Taz, and on the ESPN broadcast, you hear whistle, whistle, whistle. And I'm like, oh, did that Taz get fouled? Did he step on the baseline? And what happened? And then he walks over, still off camera, walks over, technical on Clemson's bench. And the commentators finally go, there were 6 people on the court. There were 6 men on the court, and they got a technical foul for having too many players. I can't even remember. Have either of you guys seen that happen before?
So I coached middle school basketball for 9 years. I was a freshman coach for 3 years. And it's happened more than I would like to say it should have, but I don't know that I've ever gotten the technical for it. I've done a couple of like, oh crap, I see that I've got 6 guys. I yank one of those guys running down the court, and I just kind of like push him down and, hey, get on the bench. Like, kind of one of those real quick, like, and he's kind of like, what? I'll tell you later. Just sit down and be quiet.
You're like holding a kid behind your back.
Like that has happened. Well,
I just find it super hard to believe, Guido, that on a Division I team, really any college team, that the bench of players and the coach and all the assistants do not catch that there's 6 men on the court.
I wonder how many times a year does that happen in Division I basketball? That's what I would.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that stat. I don't think it does, Scoot. That's what I'm saying. Like, ESPN did during a replay of it, and you look down the court and you see the guy who was off camera guarding, I put in air quotes, Gabe, and he's looking back up the court.
Yeah, you would think maybe it dawns on him.
And I'm like, well, why isn't that guy looking at it going, hey, there's 5 guys over there on the other side of the court? Like, somebody somewhere should have like figured that out. That's kind of, for Brad Brunell, who is the head coach at Clemson. That's do you lose your job over something like that? Like,
I don't know that you lose your job. It's definitely not a good look. And there was enough time on the clock where it could have been a thing. Like, it, was enough of a thing. Yeah.
I think they could have won that game still. Yeah, that it took him out of the game. I mean, McNeil comes on, he hits the 2 shots. We get the ball back. We kind of run it up and down slowly. Then they finally foul McNeil.
Tough to lose your job for that. But, I guess anything's possible.
Yeah, crazy end to a game. I don't think I've ever seen something like that. So, but WVU, all in all, I think we kind of all had hoped that they would win all the way through, but we had said, guys, early on that maybe they drop one of these games in this classic, if you will. I love a classic, Johnson.
I know you do, and I think you're right though with where you were headed with that thought. If you asked us at the beginning of the season, with all the moving parts on this team and all the new pieces that have to gel together, I think just expecting them to go in and win this tournament. There were some good teams in this tournament. Losing to Marquette is that's no slouch. They're probably going to have a decent season, and beating Clemson is a good win. So I think that's a good tournament. They probably grew a bit in that tournament. They probably came together a little bit more. And I think now if you can parlay that through the rest of this non-conference successfully, that's gonna be pretty good.
Well, now we come back in this non-conference and we have seven in a row in the Coliseum. So that's a big deal. You know, you play Eastern Kentucky on Friday. You got a couple other games happening the following week. Darius Nichols coming to town. So, you know, you got 7 in a row here to help you sort of build off of all of that. And then on top of all of that, you've got Connecticut still, which is a ranked team. So you do have Connecticut coming for the Big East, Big 12 battle on December 8th. At the Coliseum. But it'll be nice to have those 7 in a row, Johnson, to sort of, you know, you're at home, you're in the comfort and confines of the Coliseum, and, you know, you can kind of grow your team from there.
Yeah, and it's an opportunity anyway, I mean, against these teams to get some confidence, and you're doing it where you don't even have to travel. So, I mean, that's a big opportunity over the next 7 games to just kind of take care of business, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, guys. Well, listen, we're going to wrap it up this week. Don't forget, West Virginia basketball plays Eastern Kentucky Friday night, 7 p.m. at the Coliseum. That game is on ESPN+, so get out your nickels. You got to pay to watch it if you want to see it on the television. And then WVU Football travels to Lawrence, Kansas to face the Jayhawks. They play Kansas Saturday night, 7 p.m. That game is on Fox Sports 1, and you win that game, we're going bowling, boys. So big game for WVU right there. Kansas, they don't really have anything to show for it. They still don't have a good enough record to get into a bowl, but it's Kansas, and they are trying to rebuild that team.
It could be a spoiler. Like, they've got something to play for, though, right? So if they beat us, they've kept us out of a bowl. So there's a little bit of something there for them.
Yeah, definitely. And they've got that third string, because you probably aren't going to see Jason Bean, who has been their quarterback all season. You're going to see that third string quarterback that they were talking about redshirting this year and officially played on Saturday. So he's definitely not being redshirted. You're probably going to see him the whole game. And like we said a few weeks ago, Scoot, he's mobile. He can move.
I think he's going to be a good quarterback.
So definitely check that out. And don't forget, check us out too. You can find us online. Look for us on Instagram and Twitter at Got Your Ears. You can also find our website. It's gotyourearson.com, and check that out as well. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll be back with another show. You've been listening to Got Your Ears On.